Capitol Hill, some lawmakers are still fighting now to keep the spotlight on stopping the spread of HIV. And chief among them, California Congresswoman Barbara Lee, who is joining me live now from Washington. Congresswoman, thank you very much for joining us here.
My pleasure. Glad to be with you.
So you have co-authored basically every single big piece of AIDS legislation since you got into Congress. But there's this UN AIDS report out last year that says the world has basically 5 years to start getting a handle on how to stop the spread or else risk it rebounding completely out of control. In your view, is funding and where does this money need to go to try to make some progress here moving forward?
Absolutely. What also we learned is that we can achieve an AIDS-free generation by 2030, but the next 5 years are critical. And so we must ramp up our efforts and increase our funding. We've been able over the last 8 to 10 years hold the line on funding for PEPFAR, which was an initiative that basically the Congressional Black Caucus, myself, led the efforts on, and President Bush signed into law. Also, we've been able to maintain the level of funding for the Global Fund, the Global AIDS and Tuberculosis Relief Act, which President Clinton signed into law. We've held the line on funding for that. Also, with the Ryan White CARE Act and the Minority AIDS Initiative, which was sponsored and led by Congresswoman Maxine Waters. But I have to tell you, this has been a bipartisan effort, and we have to increase funding for prevention, care, and treatment. Otherwise, as the report said, we will go backwards. But I think this is a testament to how we can work in a bipartisan way. Leader Pelosi, you know, Congresswoman Eliana Ross-Layton, the late Henry Hyde, the late Tom Lantos, Senator Bill Frist, then Senator Kerry, many Republicans and Democrats stepped up and really said, we're going to do this and we're going to lead this country in the world, lead our country in the world to try to stamp HIV and AIDS off the face of the earth.
And Congresswoman, you talked about that push for funding, right? But you look at 30 years ago, AIDS was getting a ton of attention. It was on headlines, you know, in headlines all the time. Now it's more rarely mentioned, except for on days like today, World AIDS Day, partly because the spread has slowed. But do you think that makes it harder to push for more funding, to push for more resources for prevention research?
The media, quite frankly, hasn't been covering the pandemic still, but we have to educate the public more, and hopefully, and I'm really pleased to be able to talk with you today, because we need to really understand that we've accomplished a lot. 9.7 million people are on life-saving treatment, the antiretroviral drugs. We've saved 37 million lives. The president, before he even took office in 2008, on World AIDS Day 2008, boldly announced an emergency plan, a national strategy. And so we've moved forward in big ways. And so, yes, it has been covered in the past on the front page, through social media, through media outlets. But other priorities have taken place. So I hope that today people will understand what we have to do as a country, and that is to step up, increase the resources, because this is a matter of life and death. It's about the quality of life for people. It's about getting rid of the stigma. You know, in our country, we have 30 states that still have discrimination laws on the books that discriminate against people who live with the virus. So we have a lot of work to do, but I'm very proud of the bipartisan effort that has been achieved, and I hope that we maintain that, not only in terms of our focus, but also in terms of the funding.
Congresswoman Barbara Lee joining us here on World AIDS Day. Thank you very much.